Let's start with actually the meaning of these prayers that we will do at the beginning of every class. So, Om, of course, the universal symbol of it represents universal consciousness, Brahman, and Sadashiva Samarambham. So this means this teaching, which started with Lord Shiva, Shankaracharya Madhyama, and Shankaracharya, Adi Shankaracharya came in the middle, Asmajacharya Pariyantam, and my own teacher, I'm receiving it from now, Vande Guru Paramparam. This are salutations to the Guru Parampara through which we are receiving the teaching. So we always start every class with a prayer to the Guru Parampara and a salutation to the Guru Parampara, because like I said in the previous class, none of this teaching is my own, or it does not belong to any individual. It was passed through time, through a Guru Sishya lineage, a teacher student lineage, and that's what we are sharing here today. And the next prayer is a prayer addressed both from the student and the teacher for both of us. So it says, Sahana Vavatu. May he protect us both. May the Lord protect us both. Sahanau Bunaktu. May he nourish us both. So in Vedanta, whenever we say a prayer, even when we are asking for, a lot of prayers will ask for good health or sharp intellect and things like that, we are not asking this prayer for worldly means. It is to be understood that we are asking for these things so that we're able to have an able body and mind to sit and listen to this teaching and assimilate this teaching. So this prayer says, may he nourish us both. Sahaviryam karavavahe. May there be strength in what we learn. May there be strength in our learning. Tejasvina vaditamastu. May what we learn be bright. May the knowledge we receive be illumined, be bright. Mavid vishavahehi. May we not quarrel, teacher and I. So this could also mean may there not be a misunderstanding between the teacher and I, because this would be an hindrance to the study. And Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. So this three Shantis is for the three forces which are always present in nature. So the first Shanti is for Adhyatmik. The second Shanti is Adibodhik. And the third Shanti is for, Adidevik, it's the other way around. So the first is for Adidevik, second is for Adibodhik, and finally the Adhyatmik. What do they mean? Adidevik is for all the unforeseen forces that we are impacted by. So it's a prayer to all those unforeseen forces and all those devatas, which we'll talk about later. And the second Shanti is Adibodhik, is for the world that you interact with, other people. May your spouse or children let you listen to these teachings without interruptions. May your boss not call you in the middle of the class with something urgent, or all the other seen things in the world which can cause a hindrance to this study. And so the second Shanti is to calm that. And the third Shanti is Adhyatmik, which is myself. May there not be any hindrance from myself. May I have faith in this teaching. May my health allow me to listen to this teaching. May I be able to keep a calm, a steady state of mind to receive this teaching, right? And as you say, Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. So the last one is the quietest one because it's closest to me. So you don't need to speak so loud. And the second last one is a bit louder, and the first one is the loudest. That's the reason. Any doubts in these two prayers? Okay. Let's continue with our teaching. In the last class, we talked about what is Tattva Bodha. We said it is the knowledge of true nature or self-knowledge. The text itself we will be entering into in a couple of classes. And we are looking at some introductory terms to Advaita Vedanta right now. Among them, we looked at the 4 Purusharthas. What is the 4 human goals in life? And I hope you remember, they were Artha, Kama, Dharma, and Moksha. Artha was all the goals we have for wealth, for security, actually. All the goals that we have for security is Artha. All the goals which we have for pleasure or all our wants was Kama. And what is Artha for someone and what is Kama for someone can differ depending on your perception of what you think you need or you want. And Dharma is the invisible wealth. It's things we do because we know it will come back to serve us well in some way, or because it makes us feel better in some way. It could be because we believe in rebirth, or we believe in life after death in a heaven or hell, or it could be simply because we believe when I do good things will come to me. That is Dharma. And then we started looking at what exactly is moksha. Because the first 3 Purusharthas, we are doing any of these goals that we have in life, we ultimately want happiness. But wanting happiness from these external worldly things has certain limitations. There were 3 doshas, defects in the happiness that we seek from worldly things. The defects were the pleasure which you gain from this is always mixed with a little pain, dukkha mishri tattvam. This kind of pleasure that you get from these other worldly things will never completely satisfy you, tripti karatvam. And finally, whatever things or people you acquire to get this pleasure, it will ultimately bind you, bandha katvam. So any pleasure which you can get from Vishaya Ananda, objects of the world, has three defects or dosha. And hence, people might also be interested in the goal of moksha, which is free from these 3 defects. And what exactly is moksha? There are several benefits, he said, comes with moksha. It's we looked at the first 4 of the 5. The first was Jignasa Nivritti, a cessation of this intense curiosity to know about everything, about myself, about the world, about who this creator is. And the second benefit was Vidyananda Prapti, joy that you get from this self-knowledge, which can always act as a backup when other things fail you. So if the world is giving me joy, great, enjoy it. But if the worldly things are not giving me joy, I always have my backup, my UPS, my uninterrupted power supply, pleasure supply to fall back on. And the third benefit was Karpan and Nivritti, freedom from desperation or reliance on these worldly fleeting objects. And Agatha Nivritti was the fourth one, is freedom from shocks. And we have one left, which is Dakshata Prapti. Dakshata means efficiency. In us, there is always 2 personalities functioning all the time. The receiver and the doer. We call this Bhokta, the receiver, and Karta, the doer. there are inputs coming from the world all the time in the form of experiences, relationships, people. As I receive, I react as happy or unhappy. I react with kama, desire, krodha, anger, lobha, greed, moha, delusion, mada, pride, and matsarya, envy. I have a variety of reactions to things I receive from the world. As the doer personality, the karta, I can simply react to whatever comes my way, in which case I'm really no better than an animal, or I can learn to be more and more immune to external factors. The efficiency of the doer depends heavily on the condition of the receiver. Right? I'll give you an example. So, say you did not have a good night's sleep at all, and you had a very disturbed sleep, and your morning coffee got spilled, you got stuck in traffic on the way to work, and you have to go and do a big presentation that morning. So all these conditions which affected you as the receiver are going to then have an impact on when you have to be the doer, when you have to do this big presentation. You're probably not going to be in the most calm state of mind, most energetic frame of mind to really do this presentation. So your performance then will suffer. Same, say you come back to work and come back from work after quite a rough day, again, be some quarrels with disagreements with some colleagues, again stuck in traffic, and you come back to a house with which looks messy and the children are screaming. How you react to this screaming children will again depend on your frame of mind. You're much more likely to be patient and loving to them if you yourself are calm and relaxed, and you're more likely to scream at them if it's not so. Right? So this is what we mean by the receiver personality always affects the doer personality. So we lost one of our colleagues and a beautiful teacher earlier this month, and this morning we had a Shraddhanjali, a memorial for him, which some of you were present in. Right? We gave Acharya Raviji talked about a little bit about him and his experience. So a lot of you knew this teacher, Nandagopalji. So many of you might not have known that he had terminal cancer, which he was dealing with for the past year. He had a big surgery. He had several rounds of chemotherapy, and he was still teaching several classes. And none of the students probably had any idea that he had any kind of illness up till maybe the last month when he had to cancel a few classes. They would all tell you that he was still calm and cheerful. And he was not faking it. He actually felt that he really did not have a fear of death, and he was not suffering from the idea of his life possibly coming to an end. Even the doctors had commented how they had never seen such peace and calmness in a person facing inevitable death. He was actually told that he has only 3-4 months to live a while back, and anyone who interacted with him would have had no idea of that, because his shock absorption was so great, and because of that, his doer personality, his dakshata prapti was also very high. Right? So these are the 5 benefits that we say comes with moksha, and having these 5 benefits in full measure, that's pretty much moksha. And the beautiful thing is, you don't have to wait till the point of enlightenment. We will talk about what that means much later in this text. But you can start enjoying all these benefits very quickly. We give the example of a hungry man. If you give a hungry man some food, it's not that the hungry man has to finish the full meal before he feels satisfied. As he eats, his hunger starts getting satiated. And so it is with this knowledge. As this knowledge percolates you and is assimilated by you, you will start gaining all these benefits in bits, more and more with time. And one of the Swamis in our Sampradaya, Swami Paramarthananda, has this beautiful term called FIR. The Indians will know the funny connotation of that because FIR in India means first information report that you file with the police when there is a crime, but his FIR is different. This FIR is a way for you to measure your own spiritual progress. So as you continue with these classes, there is a reason you would be continuing, and you might wonder, am I making any progress at all, or I'm enjoying it? So that's why I'm maybe listening to this. Is it just some kind of intellectual gymnastics am I doing? Not at all. There is real benefit. There is real spiritual progress, and you can measure it yourself. Time goes. So how do you do it? FIR stands for, the F is for the frequency of your internal disturbances. How frequently do you get disturbed from your equilibrium? Is it 1 time in a day, 5 times in a day, several times in the week? You see that? I is with the intensity with which this disturbance happens. So when you're not in your equilibrium, when a disturbing situation comes your way, do you feel it with the intensity of 2, 3, or more like 9, 10, like unbearable disturbance? And R is for the recovery time. Once you get disturbed from your equilibrium, how long does it take you to come back to it? Does it take you 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or, it takes you 20 years? Some people do not get over a certain insult for years and years. They can hold grudges for years. Are you one of those people, right? So the frequency, intensity, and recovery time. How do you use this? You do not really use it you don't judge it on a case by case basis. You don't say, just because, something big happened and you felt a huge disturbance at that point, you don't say, my whole spiritual progress, nothing's happened. I'm exactly the person I was. Because your frame of mind will differ from time to time. How big the situations which come your way will differ, right? So you use it over a period of time. You see how my FIR has been in these 6 months over the previous 6 months, or the 6 months before that, right? And you will see that your FIR over time is improving. That's how you use this. Okay. Otherwise, it can, if you judge yourself too fast or too harshly, we have a little joke. I was joking with another Vedantian friend that it will become the double samsara of a spiritual person. So everyone has this normal samsara, this normal suffering that they deal with. And additionally, spiritual people can have this additional samsara of when something happens, they're suffering, and they can create an additional suffering for themselves, thinking, but I am a spiritual person and I should not be feeling sad or disturbed by what's happened, right? So you can create double samsara for yourself. So don't do that. So look at your FIR over a period of time, and you will see that it's improving. Any questions so far? Then we can move on. Now, we said this knowledge, the self-knowledge, can give you so many of these benefits. How do we gain this knowledge? Before getting into that, we will first look at how do we gain any kind of knowledge. A means of knowledge is called a Pramanam in Sanskrit. We will now spend some time looking at the various Pramanams and how different schools of philosophies in India vary on their take on how to obtain this knowledge. This might seem a bit theoretical, but trust me, it's very important as a base concept for your Vedantic study. Let me share a slide with you. These are the different types of Pramanam or sources of knowledge. All right. So the first one is Pratyaksha. Prati means near, Aksha means eyes. So the word itself is referring to eyes, but it's an indicator of all your organs of perception. So any perception through any of your Gyanendriyas, your organs of knowledge, your eyes, ears, nose, mouth, touch, any knowledge that you can gain from these sense perceptions is called Pratyaksha Pramanam. So any, you can smell and maybe say there is a dirty river nearby, or you can see and tell there is a fire in the forest, right? So any knowledge that you gain by any of these sense perceptions is called Pratyaksha. Anumanam means inference. It's you see smoke and you can tell because that there must be a fire, because you already have a knowledge that when there is smoke, there is always fire. So you infer just by seeing the smoke that there must be fire. For inference, there should be something called invariable concomitance, which means that it should be true in both cases. If there is smoke, there must be always fire. And if there is a fire, there will be smoke, right? So only if it works both ways, you can call it an inference, an anumana. And the third one is upamana, a comparison. When you say someone is strong as a bull, for example, we don't actually mean, or you might just say he's a bull. We don't actually mean the person is a real bull. We mean we're referring to the strength, right? So the knowledge you use, you get through comparison is called upamana. Because when we talk about the absolute consciousness, which is not perceivable by any of these senses, Brahman, we use a lot of upamana to describe qualities of Brahman. The fourth is arthapati, which means postulation. It is basically a two-step inference. Right. So it's different from Anumana because instead of one step, it has two steps. And I will, the popular example we use is there is a man, Devadatta, who is very fat and he is never seen eating during the day. So we have two pieces of information. We have this fat man, Devadatta, but we never see him eating during the day. Both of which seem contradictory, So you need now a third statement to make sense of these two. And that third statement is a reasonable assumption or a postulation. And the postulation can be, okay, Devdatta must be eating at night. That's how we make sense of the first two statements. So that is a postulation. It can be something else also. It can be like, so I left my desk and went somewhere and it was empty. And when I came back, there was a cup of tea on it. So what's the postulation you can make there? You can make a postulation that someone must have left me that cup of tea there, right? So a third statement, a supposition, a reasonable supposition, would be what we call arthapati. So if I make a supposition that a bird dropped this cup of tea on my desk, that's not a reasonable supposition, and that's not what we're talking about here. Anupalabdhi, the fifth one, is non-availability. It's simply non-perception. Someone asks you, is it raining? And you look outside and say, no, it's not raining. There is no rain. And that's the piece of information. That is Anupalabdhi. Non-availability of rain tells you that it's a clear day or that it's not raining right now. It's as simple as that.
How does this differ from the first one, Spandanaji?
It's just non-availability. So something is not there, so versus something is there. That's it. It's just very simple. They're related, of course. Yeah. I mean, this can also tie together with something else, like non-availability can be, I don't, not exactly. I mean, you can say there is no smoke. That's first, that in that sense, that's non-anupalabdhi, non-availability of smoke. So from that, it gives you the knowledge that there is no smoke alone. From there, you can make an anumana, an inference, saying there is no smoke, so I can presume there is no fire. Right? But then there's two different pramanams. We use that. Okay. And finally, we have shastram, the scriptures, also known as shabda pramanam. And this is the only source of pramanam which can tell you about this absolute consciousness. There is no other pieces of, there is no other types of pramanam which can give you this information that scriptures give. That's what it said. So when we do this study, you cannot ask someone to prove what the scriptures are saying in any other way. You can either believe the scriptures, in which case you're a believer of the scriptures, an astika, or you cannot believe the scriptures, in which case you're an astika. You can say, I do not believe in the scriptures. That's perfectly fine, in which case you probably will not undertake the study for very long, which is also fine. It has to speak to you and it has to feel truthful to you. You will not find anything, logic or any of these other pramanams can disprove anything the scriptures say. So that is the promise of the scriptures, that you will not be able to disprove anything. But you cannot ask for something the scriptures are saying to be proven, right? So it's like saying, how do you, like, what is the color of the kurta I'm wearing right now? Can you tell me?
White.
And how do you know it's white?
Because we see it.
Yes, but I would like you to taste it and prove that it's white.
Color cannot be proven by taste. Color can only be proven by
then
sight.
Then smell it and tell me it's white.
No, it cannot be proven by any other way except by
Right.
sight.
So it's the same with any source of pramanam, that it cannot. So any source of pramanam is self-valid by itself, right? That's what makes it a pramanam. If the first time some knowledge is revealed to you, if it's already known to you, then it's just a memory. It's not a new source of knowledge. So any of these sources of pramanam are self-valid by itself. If you are sitting in your room and you smell smoke, like you smell a lot of smoke, you're not going to say, let me wait till I see the fire before I move. You're going to get out of your room and get somewhere safe, right? Because for you, Anumana is a valid source of this knowledge. This, you first, with your pratyaksha, you smelt the smoke, and you then using Anumana, your inference to say that, okay, I'm smelling smoke, so there must be a fire close by, and I need to get out, right? So you're accepting these two as a source of pramanam. And similarly, scriptures are a source of knowledge which are self-valid by themselves. So it's possible that some of these can be negated, right? So when we say they should be self-valid, and they should not be negated by any other source of pramanam. So you're walking in the desert and you see water, right? So there's your pratyaksha being telling you there is water in the distance. You're very thirsty, so you go towards the water, and you realize that it was just a mirage. It was not really real water. So the first source of pramanam has been negated. So then it was an error, in which case you accept, okay, it was an error. It was not a valid source of pramanam. Similarly, if you find something in the scriptures can be negated, in that case, you can say, okay, it was negated, so it's not a valid source anymore. But till that point, it is a valid source of knowledge for us. Okay. All right. Any questions in that?
Hi, I would like to ask a thought which crossed my mind. Is there some reason for the chronology in which these are arranged? I mean, start from, this pratyaksham and all that.
No, there's no particular reason.
Not sure. I thought point number one, when you dwell in the point number one, it opens out like thousands of questions. When you go to point number two, the number of questions in the mind reduces. And by the time you reach to the scriptures, you get all the answers. I mean, that was the logic I made up for myself. So I just want to reconfirm.
Fair enough. There might have been some logic in the sense that when we look at the different schools of thinking in India, there are some which accept only the first. There are a few which accept more than them. So I kind of we generally might be putting together because of that. But yeah, at this point, I didn't give it too much thought. But yes, I guess there is some logic to it.
Yeah, because this is the second time I'm going through the Tattva Bodha with you, and I find everything is so scientific that I'm fascinated by the minds that are all behind and putting this together.
We don't like comparing Vedas to science though, because science requires things to be proven, right? And right now what we just said is Vedas, the scriptures, is a valid source of pramanam. So you can never ask to prove it. So at most, Vedic statements can be used as an axiom. What's an axiom? Right. It is something you consider valid till it's disproved. So at most, scientific statements can be considered an axiom, but it's very tricky, dangerous to compare scriptures with science, because science is constantly changing what they say. And Yeah, they're always changing what they say, right? At one point they said the greatest minds in the world thought the world was flat. Then they agreed that no, the world is round. Till very recently, everyone said the world creation started with the Big Bang, right? And some of the latest theories in physics say no, actually creation is cyclical, because this physicist Roger Penrose, who's a contemporary of Stephen Hawking, he's studying the black holes, and he saw that you can see remnants of past creation in that. So now they started saying creation is actually cyclical, which is something scriptures have been saying for ages, eons. So yes, sometimes you might find correlation with something science says and what scriptures say. And it's always fun and interesting when that happens. But we don't look for scientific proof.
No, I understand. Maybe I'll rephrase myself and say like,
no, and there's nothing wrong in what you said.
to-
I just took it as an opportunity to make this point.
No, it's correct. I mean, it's very important to remain in the perspective. Otherwise, you tend to lose your way, because it's almost like trying to define infinity. That, I mean, you cannot define infinity, because the moment you start defining infinity, it becomes finite. It's something like that. So abstract. But it's wonderful.
Thank you.
Super.
Let's move on. Yes, Avinash, did you have a question?
No, I only wanted to say that science actually is a thing, repeatability of results of any experiment. The results will not change. Experiment may improve with technology or new ways of saying, but the end result, there will be a repeatability or fineness will be coming up.
Okay, thank you.
In the case of science.
Right. So we generally like to keep questions related to what was said for middle of the class, and extra comments and questions we can take after 9. Thank you. Okay. Right. So let's continue. We will now look at what is the schools of thinking which exist in India. All right, so this I already covered, but this is the Sanskrit names for it. Each source of Pramanam is Anadikatam, which means it reveals something new which was never revealed before. It is Abaditam, it is always unnegated, and to be considered a valid source of knowledge. If it gets negated, it simply was an error, right? And what is the implication of this is that all these sources of Pramanam, including the scriptures, are self-valid unless negated. And what the implication of what does it mean to accept Veda as a Pramanam? So these are the popular Indian darshanas, viewpoints. We don't really say philosophy, because especially for Vedanta, we can't say philosophy. Philosophy usually means something which was came out of someone's mind, and this is not something which came out of anyone's mind. Right? So we call them, Dharshana translates better as viewpoint. So India has, it has several, but these are the 12 main viewpoints which exist right now. Astika Darshana means one who accepts Vedas as a source of Pramanam, as a source of knowledge. And Nastika means those who do not accept Vedas as a source of Pramanam, as a source of knowledge. So in the Nastika Darshana, we have the 4 schools of Buddhism. We have almost everyone here is probably aware. I'm muting everyone. Would have had probably some exposure to Buddhism at some point. We will find that probably there is a lot of similarities also in what Buddhism says and what Vedanta says many times, because it is also a non-dual philosophy. Right, the major difference will occur because Buddhism says everything is shunya, everything is emptiness, and they won't talk about what is this emptiness, right? They won't name it. Whereas we also say everything is the same, everything is the same absolute consciousness, but we don't shy away from naming it. There's also something which limits the Buddhists from being able to name it, which is that because they don't accept Vedas as a source of knowledge, and there is no other source of knowledge which can tell you about this absolute consciousness except the Vedas. So they have Buddhism, the 4 different schools are there. Jainism, which is largely based on the principles of non-violence. It's also beautiful. A lot of these viewpoints have a lot of beauty in them. We don't have problem with any of them. And, even, I don't know if that happened. Okay, yes. So even if you go to the Dalai Lama, who I respect very much and I had the privilege to meet, he will tell you that before coming to Buddhism, you stick to whatever religion you were born in, because your life would be easier. And because they have a lot of teachings about Dharma, the righteous way of living. And a lot of these viewpoints can actually help you progress quite a bit in your spiritual path, because it will help you reach a righteous, lead a righteous life and purify your mind and so on. And so similarly, Jainism is based on this beautiful philosophy of ahimsa, non-violence. And Charvaka, it's almost kind of non-existent as a Dharshana in India, but I guess very existent in the world in general today. Charvaka is materialism. They believe that what I see is all there is. This life is all there is. So eat, drink, and be merry, because there is nothing after this, So that's Charvaka. And then we have the 6 Astika Darshanas, the ones which accept Vedas as Pramanam. The first one is Nyaya, which is logic. They were the original epistemologists. Epistemology is the theory of knowledge. They're the ones who first talked about what exactly is knowledge, what is the Pramanam, what are the sources of Pramanam, what is fallacious reasoning. They talked about all these things, and we are very happy to use a lot of these principles, when we talk about it. And Vaisheshika were the original metaphysicists. They brought on theories about how this world was created and so on. And at some point, the Nyayas and the Vaisheshikas came together, because Vaisheshikas accepted the logic that Nyayas put out, and Nyayas accepted the theory of creation that Vaisheshikas put out. And together they started being called Tarkavadis, the logicians. Then we have Samkhya philosophy, which is probably one of the major viewpoints quite strong in India today. It is a dualistic philosophy. So they believe there is Prakriti and Purusha. There is a matter principle and there is a consciousness principle. And ultimately, both are real. And samsara, this suffering, is because me, Purusha, the consciousness principle, I'm getting myself confused with Prakriti, the matter principle. And liberation is being able to identify myself as separate from this. But in the end, they say both are real. So I'm going over all this very fast because this is not something you need to really remember. It'll, at much later stage of Vedantic study, we start comparing with these other darshanas. We look at, what is the objections these other darshanas put forward to what Vedanta is saying. And that helps us clarify our own thinking. That's a lot of what Adi Shankaracharya did. He debated with all these darshanas. All right. So then we have yoga, which is, most people know yoga as the asanas these days is what it's largely known for, but it's all the steps of yoga, starting with yamas, niyamas, which is the righteous way of living, the inner qualities to develop, then asana, then pranayama, then pratyahara, withdrawal of the senses, then dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, concentration, meditation, and samadhi. So yoga talks about all that, and we again accept all these steps laid out by yoga as being very useful in spiritual life, very useful to purify your mind. So whenever we see anything useful from other viewpoints, we're happy to take it. We only disagree with the conclusion of a lot of these viewpoints, right? So Purva Mimamsa, or the Karma Kandas, is the first part of the Vedas, which deals with all these other Purusharthas that we talked about: Dharma, Artha, Dharma, Kama. So that they deal with that. And the Uttar Mimamsa Vedanta, like I told you before, is what deals with the moksha aspect of what is said in the Vedas, the highest knowledge about who I am. And Advaita Vedanta is what you're here to pursue, to study, and that's basically non-duality, saying there is only one absolute consciousness, and that absolute consciousness I am. We will, of course, dive a lot more into what that says. There's also Vishishta Advaita, which is kind of, it's called, translated as qualified non-dualism. There is still a master-slave mentality in that, while they'll say there is that one consciousness, but there is still a God who is superior to me, and there is a jiva me who is subservient to that God, and even after liberation I will remain a subservient being to this God. And Dvaita is a dualist interpretation of Vedanta. Any questions in any of this?
Could you explain the Uttara Mimamsa, please, once again? I didn't understand the parts and that.
Yeah, Uttara Mimamsa is just another word for Vedanta. It's what the end portion of the Vedas, which deals with the highest knowledge, moksha. And in this, we have various schools. Anything particular in these three you did not understand? Advaita?
Actually, just you could roughly go through again, just basic.
Okay. So Advaita is non-duality. Okay. So it's saying there is only one absolute consciousness. I went over it very fast because we'll talk about it in a lot of detail, right? Vishishta Advaita is qualified non-duality, while they kind of believe in non-duality, but in the end they say, I am still, I'm inseparable from God, but I'm still very different from this God. And there is a master-slave relationship there, which exists even after liberation. And Dvaitam is duality, saying that I am different from God and different from the world.
So does Dvaitam and Sankhya, are they similar?
Yeah, Sankhya is also a dualistic philosophy.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. And so now we looked at the darshanas and we looked at the pramanams. Good question raised earlier was there a particular order to this? I guess there was, because first Pramanam, Pratyaksha. Charvakas accept only Pratyaksha Pramanam. They only accept what they see. Anything they cannot see, they don't accept. Everyone else, including all the Nastika Darshanas, accept also Anumana in addition to Pratyaksha, right? So the Tarkavadis, that is the Nyayas and the Vaisheshikas, and Samkhya and Yoga, they additionally also accept Vedas and Upamana. So they accept 4 of the Pramanas. And the Purva Mimamsa also accept Arthapati, the 2-step inference. And but of course, all the Astikas accept Vedas as Pramanam. Among the main darshanas, only we accept all 6 Pramanams. Okay. And there is, one subsect of Purva Mimamsa which also accepts Anupalabdhi, so which makes them quite close to us, but they're not a major darshana. So now we have just 5 minutes left, so probably not a good time to start a new topic. So we can take any questions on what was discussed, or any other general questions also we can take.
So the Charvakas don't even believe in right or wrong, because is that right? Because then there is
Yes.
no consequence to any actions they do. Is that
Yes.
what they believe in?
Yes, that's what they believe in. Which is, like I said, as a darshana, they're not so valid anymore, but it's unfortunately the way of living of a lot of people in the material world today. It's materialism.
So people, I would think about people who indulge in really heinous crimes because they're not worried about the consequences. Would that classify?
If that's what their inner belief is, yes. But we don't know. We don't know if people do these things because they don't believe, or at this point they don't care, or something else. They are under the influence of something greater, which is overriding their logic and their righteous thinking. Yes. Udjit, you have a question? Costa, you have a question?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
It was going back to the 5 benefits of the Atma Jananam, and it was the gaining efficiency.
Atma Jnanam, yeah.
Jananam. And we talked about the gaining efficiency was in how it's like in our ability to receive impacts how we can do. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify. I had some notes here, but I was like, is that what it meant? The efficiency means that efficiency of our ability to do is based on that, how we receive the event.
Yes. I mean, part of it is based on what we receive, but also in general efficiency in terms of, it can also be a positive thing that you gain, like by your practices. Like say you have a regular meditation practice, for example, you can have greater clarity of mind, greater ability to focus, concentrate. That will also build your efficiency. So it also stands as a benefit by itself. All right. An efficiency in what we do can be a benefit by itself. And it's also an interlinked benefit with the previous one, where how I am impacted as a receiver, how my efficiency or as a doer is related to that.
Okay.
That's a good clarification. Thanks for asking. Yes.
Swarnaji, I have a question.
Please go ahead.
Does these names suggest that these schools of thoughts came up were propagated by these great sages of our country, like Sankhya and Vashishta?
Some of them are named after who propagated that philosophy, yes, but not all of them.
All right.
If there's no other questions, we can end the class then.
Other than one thing, other than this right and left paths, there could be a possibility of the middle path, a blend of both. Because as the world is changing, maybe several centuries back, you had the left path, and now there could be a path of the Nastic. I think there could be a middle path, some belief of this part and some belief of that path or something. I mean, something like that. There is no always a right and left. There could be a blend also in between.
For many people, yes. But at some point, to reach a destination, you have to pick a path. Otherwise, you will just be traveling on the path.
Shortcut is the middle path.
You can try. See where it takes you. You can talk to, I mean, you'll see yourself, and you can also talk to some of the old students. There are people who are coming to these classes for 5 years, 10 years plus. So there won't be, like we said, no intelligent person would be undertaking an activity unless there is a benefit. You can check your own FIR with time and see if it's actually giving you a benefit or not. And that hopefully decides the path for you. For many people, yes, they have explored several things, and then they found something which really resonated with them, so they stuck with it. Some others, like myself, we were a bit had a bit more grace perhaps, or a bit more luck in this lifetime, where when I heard my first Advaita Vedanta class, I felt that's it, I'm listening to the truth, and I never looked beyond that. So, but everyone will have to decide for themselves,
right,
if this makes sense for them or not. Yeah.
Experience is the best teacher.
Right, we'll do the closing prayers. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Thank you. Have a beautiful
Thank
day.
you, Spandanaji.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.